Is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. This is the Department of Family and Support Services, Disability Support Services, request for proposal. Next slide. At this time, I would like to introduce Thomas Mose, who will be managing our information technology today. Tom.
All right, thanks, B. Hi, everyone. My name's Thomas Mose. I'm with the Department of Family and Support Services in the Children's Services Division. I help the entire department run GoToWebinar meetings, especially when it comes to requests for proposal webinars. And so I'm providing technical assistance today, and I'll just go over a couple housekeeping items for you and then turn it back to my colleague. Due to the volume of participants, everyone is placed on mute. We'd like you to submit your questions via the question box, and we will respond to the questions after going through the slides, so at the end of the presentation. And please use the question box to notify us of any technical issues. And if I can do my best to respond to any issues that you have, sometimes it's related to audio, I'll be there to help you out. And so with that, I'll advance the slides and turn it back to my colleague.
Thank you, Tom. This is B. Nichols with the department. I am one of the directors in the Children's Services Division. And so welcome. We are very happy to have you on with us today. And my colleagues will be joining me throughout this presentation. You will hear from me for a little bit this afternoon, and then I will turn it over to Seth Rich. Seth is Assistant Director for Operations. And then Julia Talbot, who you will meet much later on in the presentation, will give you all of that important information that you need to know about how to submit your application. So this is the agenda and what we will be working from. The first half will be about program description and scope. And in the second half, as I mentioned, will be all about our e-procurement system and how to submit your application. And good luck to you. Next slide. So the purpose of this RFP is we are seeking one entity to provide subject matter expertise, training, and technical assistance to the grantee, which is DFSS, and all of our Chicago early learning sites, which we have all across the city. They are known as our direct service providers. We want this particular entity to do work related to early childhood disability services. And so you will, or whoever gets this is awarded and selected, will be a support service delegate agency for us in the area of disability services, birth through 5. Our direct service delegate agencies, again, which are our agencies that provide those services in the community, receive Head Start funding. There are different Head Start funding models that DFSS has. They can serve in center-based settings, Head Start, early Head Start Child Care Partnership, or early Head Start expansion. They are required to ensure that at least 10% of the Head Start's total enrollment are given to children with an IFSP, or Individualized Family Service Plan, or IEP, Individualized Education Program. Next slide. Just to give you a little background about the work that needs to be done with the agencies. Our delegate agencies, as I mentioned before, really support children from infancy through preschool. They work with children that have diagnosed disabilities and/or developmental delays. But our programs are only one source through which children are identified. So within the Head Start performance standards, our delegate agencies are required to gather evidence that supports referrals for children with disabilities, either through working with the local early intervention or EI agency within their child family connections offices, or through the local education agency or LEA, which we all know is Chicago Public Schools. District 299. So our delegate agencies really support families from the inception all the way through the evaluation period to getting an IFSP or IEP. I want to just share a little of the data from our program information report that we need to provide to HHS, which is our funder. As of January 29th of this year, our Early Head Start program, CCP, and expansion have reported that over 23% of our children have IFSPs. Also, according to that data, the number of children in our Head Start programs with IEPs is right about 7.49%. We anticipate that this Head Start number will increase as we move towards the spring. But our funder really holds us to that end of the year PIR report, where we have to have 10% of children with diagnosed disabilities. So you're going to see that 7.49% rise. We just needed to go to 10%. So this is an area that I wanted to review with you because this is an area that our support service vendor will help our agencies and the grantee to succeed in. Next slide. So the goals for this particular RFP, we seek an entity that can provide subject matter expertise and provide TNTA to us as the grantee and all of our providers in the area of early childhood disability support services. And working with our direct service delegate agencies to help them meet and improve the services for these young children with suspected and identified disabilities, and sometimes working with their families. Programs will obtain the IFSPs and the IEPs, and they will also develop the specialized health care plans, which coincide with the Section 504 health plans provided through CPS. But the vendor that's selected will assist our programs with obtaining all of these plans and provide them training on plans, how to individualize for children. The direct service delegate agencies will maintain compliance, and they will maintain compliance with every one of these standards. I'm not going to go over each of these because we're going to talk about them a little later as well, but all people that are potential vendors, all agencies, you need to become familiar with these requirements. Next slide. Target population. So we contract with a network of agencies. These agencies represent 351 sites across the city of Chicago that implement program models designed to meet the individual needs of local community areas. Programs may be delivered through a variety of different models. It could be center-based, family child care homes. They could deliver services through home-based or home visiting models. And they may operate on a full or part year basis. Any agency or site may have one or more funding streams. So they may have Head Start, which is collaborated with Preschool for All dollars or Prevention Initiative dollars. Those dollars also help to support the services for children and families, but it's all funded through DFSS. In total, these programs are referred to as SEL programs, Chicago Early Learning, and reach over 21,555 children and their families. Next slide. And now I'm going to turn it over to Seth Rich to bring you up to date on program requirements. Seth.
Thanks, B. So for program requirements, we're going to have to promote the school readiness of children with suspected or diagnosed disabilities, ensuring that programs are inclusive, lesson plans follow developmentally appropriate practice, and are individualized to meet children's needs. Coordinate with early intervention and local education agency to ensure children and families are supported through a referral, evaluation, and service delivery system to identify infants, toddlers, and preschoolers with disabilities and/or developmental delays and secure services. Ensure the smooth transition of children with IFSPs and IEPs under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, Part C, services to infant, toddlers, to Part B, and services to preschoolers. Support Chicago Early Learning staff professional development through training and technical assistance as it relates to serving children with suspected or diagnosed disabilities, especially within the context of their development and family structures. Next slide, please. So performance goals and outcomes. The Department of Family and Support Services will monitor and track a set of performance indicators that may include, but are not limited to, direct service agency compliance with Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, Part B, local education agency, the LEA, and Part C, early intervention for children ages birth to 5, as well as Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, the Americans with Disabilities Act, Chicago Early Learning Standards, the CELS 2.0, Illinois Early Learning and Development Standards, and Illinois Early Learning Guidelines. This also includes the Head Start Early Learning Outcomes Framework and Head Start Parent, Family, and Community Engagement Framework, and Head Start Program Performance Standards, and the Head Start Act. Pre and post training surveys that assess the impact of training attendees' knowledge. Next slide, please. Continuing performance goals and outcomes. We need to monitor and recognize intermediate progress towards the above performance indicators. DFSS also intends to track output metrics that may include, but are not limited to, the number of trainings provided to DFSS CSD, direct service delegate agencies, and DFSS CSD. The number of hours of intensive TNTA provided to the Department of Family and Support Services, Children's Service Division, identify direct service delegate agencies to strengthen their systems related to disabilities for compliance. Number of completed direct service delegate agency corrective, or quality improvement plans. In addition, number of hours provided to the Health Services Advisory Committee, Disabilities and Education Committees. The number of parent trainings conducted, number of observations, consultations concerning family engagement and parent advocacy related to IFSPs, IEPs, 504 plans. The number and progress notes related to the referral and evaluation process of individual children who are suspected or diagnosed with a disability, including the development and implementation of IFSPs, IEPs, and 504 plans. Next slide, please. The selection criteria. So the strength of the proposed program. So what we're looking for is for you to clearly define your previous experience as a subject matter expert in providing training and technical assistance to meet the required objectives. We'll also look for you to explain your understanding of all required standards that must be followed to ensure compliance of best practices for education and disabilities, and demonstrate an ability to implement or improve another organization's program in compliance with these standards. We'll also look at how you demonstrate experience in local, state, or federal agencies demonstrates the ability to create action plans that generate quality improvements for these settings. We'll also look to ensure that you understand how to advocate on the behalf of children and to be representative in professional settings that engage communities and stakeholders. We'll also look at the application and make sure that you demonstrate strength in the proposal of supporting the child referral process and supports Chicago early learning professionals and children before, during, and after the referral, and ensure supportive services are obtained. Next slide, please. We're also going to look for to ensure that you demonstrate proficiency in understanding the specified population served by Chicago early learning programs and how they will work to provide direct service delegate agencies with guidance and coaching to enhance their delivery of services. In addition, we're going to look at the applications and make sure that it excels in demonstrating the ability to understanding of citywide and focused TNTA. We're going to see if the respondent is versed in understanding supportive tools that lead to quality delivery of services. We'll also be looking at the applications to ensure that you have expertise in navigating and supporting the child referral process, and that it demonstrates a system for safely collecting and storing program and client data. Next slide, please. Okay, the selection criteria for organizational capacity. We're going to make sure that the respondent articulates an infrastructure that includes a project manager and team of experts in the area of early childhood education and disability, that the application ensures the appropriate credentials and experience of positions within the infrastructure, that the application includes and demonstrates expertise in adult learning theory and ability to articulate strategies that support the learning of adult professionals within education and disabilities. In addition, that it demonstrates a system of fiscal monitoring and reporting, and that it demonstrates a commitment to inclusive practices in working with partners and their communities. Next slide, please. Selection criteria: reasonable cost, budget, justification, and leverage of funds. That the application has the fiscal capacity to implement the proposed program. We're also going to be looking at if the application leverages other funds and in-kind contributions to support total program and administrative costs. Examples given: state, federal, foundation, corporate, individual donations. And that the respondent demonstrates reasonable implementation costs and funding requests relative to its financial and human resources. Next slide, please. The selection criteria attachments. So these are things that we want to make sure that we attach. Be sure to attach reports, studies, training agenda, evaluation, or other documentation that show performance towards reaching the program goals and demonstrate results and accomplishments. Please be sure to attach the resumes for key staff that are overseeing the program. Also, be sure to attach your organization's budget for this program. Next slide, please. The selection timeline. Okay, so February 11th, 2021, it's the pre-proposal webinar. Today, March 5th, 2021 is the due date to submit questions. So make sure that you get your questions in before March 5th, 2021. March 11th, 2021 at noon is the application due date. So applications are due March 11th, 2021 at noon. April 1st, 2021, it's not April Fool's, it is the anticipated contract date. Next slide, please. So just to reiterate, applications are due on March 11th, 2021 at noon, at 12 o'clock noon. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to Julia Talbot.
Hi, so I am Julia Talbot. I am the person who runs the RFP process for the Department of Family and Support Services. So I'm the person that helps with e-procurement and making sure that your application comes in, but also sort of like providing guidance to the program units at DFSS as to how to do the RFPs in ways that are both transparent and equitable and all of that kind of good stuff. So I'm going to go through a little bit about the e-procurement system. I'm going to tell you a few pro tips that I've learned over the years on that, and then we're going to go into then I'll go through a few screenshots to show you how to accept an amendment and how to do it, how to actually submit the application. I think everybody I can see, I think that you all are fairly experienced with the e-procurement system, so this shouldn't take very long. Although if you have questions, you should always feel free to ask questions in the question box below, or you can call or email me or the helpful folks at the e-procurement hotline afterwards. So we'll go right into the next slide, Tom. Thank you. So if you've never done business with the City of Chicago, you're going to have to register, but I can see from where everybody today is from that actually I believe everybody has a current contract. And so like you guys should all know this. So we're always updating our RFP templates. We're always updating our questions. We're frequently updating our scopes. and selection criteria. So it's really important that even though this might be something that a program that you feel familiar with, it's really important to read those narratives, those scopes, and the application questions closely. I was just doing some forensic kind of looking back on different applicant pools from, I guess, a year ago, and like looking at who didn't get funded, and actually quite a number of people in this particular pool didn't get funded because they assumed that the program model was the same. They kind of didn't read the application questions particularly carefully, and they cut and paste their applications in. And so I had one agency that had actually done 5 applications, none of them were right, and they didn't get funded, and that was like a waste of their time. Which was, and it was too bad because we wouldn't, they would have been a great contractor. So just read those narratives and application questions closely. Try to do it earlier in the game, so that if you have questions, you can reach out to Seth or B. Review the selection criteria carefully. When you go to write your application in the e-procurement environment, there's a 4,000 character limit, which includes punctuation and spaces. And so when I say 4,000 character limit, I'm saying per response, not for the entire application. 4,000 characters, I think, is about 2/3 of a single spaced page. The e-procurement system is not going to count those characters for you, so I tell people to write your answers into a word processing document that will count for you. It's also a good idea to do that and save that document, because once you hit submit on your application, all of your good language gets sucked away, and you really can't access it again. And so there have been instances where people put it into, they make an application. By the time they get to the contracting, they're not 100% sure of what in fact they might have submitted, and they don't have a copy of it to give to, they don't have a copy for their own review, which is, of course, embarrassing. So we've all been there, but this is how you get around that. So just in case you were wondering, e-procurement works best with the Internet Explorer browser, but that browser really barely is functioning. No one's using it anymore. I have found personally that it works fine on Chrome, on Firefox, on Safari. Those all work better. If the program, the e-procurement software, and your personal computer or work computer just can't get along, I really say go to Internet Explorer. That's where you're going to get your best results. But for the most part, it should be supported well with pretty much all the other internet platforms at this point. Another thing is, don't use the back button on your browser. If you do that, it will do it. It will send you back, but it will stop. The e-procurement program will stop recording whatever work you do, and you won't find that out until you try to save it, and then you'll get an error message to be thrown out, and you'll not have any of the work that you did since you hit that back button saved, and that's awful. I like to tell everybody to start early and to save often. Let's go to the next slide. And one of the things that you can do on this is you can submit your application and then pull it back later. So if you're a person that worries about that your application is not going to be submitted, that there is nothing, it's better to have a half-done application than no application in the system at all. If you're worried about that, I would say submit, and then you can revise it as much as you want up until that March 11th, 2021 at 12 noon deadline. And that is a very, very firm deadline. We cannot accept late applications. The only way we can accept late applications is to repost the entire RFP, which means we have to throw out everybody who got their stuff in on time's applications and make them do it again. I tell people to plan on the submission taking 30 to 60 minutes. As you'll see when we've stepped through the submittal screens, that there's always like something that the program is like, no, you didn't do this, and it just takes time. So it's better to not rush, to have the time to figure out what is needed and do it and not feel too much pressure. You can always call me for e-procurement issues or general kind of administrative stuff. Seth and B are the people to talk to about program stuff. If you have a program question, you can ask me. I'm really just going to refer to them. If you want to talk to me about it, you can, but I'm going to just make up an answer because I don't know very much about disability services in the early childhood development world. At least I don't know as much as you do. And so it's really best to try to talk to B and chat around programmatic questions. If you cannot, if you're having real big problems with e-procurement and or you can't get a hold of me, which is unlikely because I really do monitor these things and take trying to give feedback within get back to you within 24 hours, if not sooner, really seriously, I suggest that you make use of the e-procurement hotline. That's 744-HELP. You can also email them at customer support at cityofchicago.org, and both of these numbers are all over the RFP document that you'll find in e-procurement. Just note that the hotline operates during business hours only, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And so, and they try their best to get back to people immediately, but they say up to, make sure that give them up to 48 hours. So, so in terms of getting the help that you need if you run into trouble, just again, the earlier you can call us, the better off we'll all be. Let's go to the next slide. So we're going to go right from here. And you're not a new agency, so I don't think there's any new agencies in here. But if you were, these are just a heads up on the kinds of things that we require to an application. So we need articles of incorporation and any amendments, your IRS affirmation letter, we need to get that FIN number basically. We need the CCR, we need your DUNS letter, and we need your certificate of good standing letter. If anybody has a question on any of these, I know I'm kind of breezing through it, just put a question in the question box or just call me later. But I think everybody here, as returning applicants, this isn't something that should be any surprise to you. So the next slide. So again, technical assistance, here are the numbers and the email addresses. There's also some really good training materials online on the cityofchicago.org iSupplier online training materials page. There's a lot, there's instructions, a lot of them are my screenshots, quite frankly. There are videos on walking you through some basic procedures, and then we're going to do the two most common ones here. So that's, let's go to the next slide. And so here we are with the how to accept an amendment. So when we do an RFP, we have the webinar, we accept the questions, and then we make all of those questions into and answers, we put them into an amendment document. And when you do that, we post it to the e-procurement website as part of the RFP, and we and that means that if you've started an application or if you haven't started an application, you want to start one, you're going to have to accept that amendment in order to start the application. And so I'd like to just walk through some slides on how we do that, how to do that. You'll see through the slides that really what we're very much interested in that people read the amendment. Sometimes it has good information that you might not have had. Occasionally, this is where if we change the due date to the RFP, which probably isn't going to happen with this one, but if you change the due date or if there's a significant change, it all happens in that amendment document. And you're going to go through 5 screens basically attesting that you've read the amendment document. I actually suggest that you do. They're helpful. It's helpful. It has useful information. The bare bones ones will just have the question and answers from the webinars and what we've gotten through email and phone calls. But sometimes if there's a big change, that's where it's going to end up. So let's get started with how to accept an amendment. So what you're going to do is, if you have to start your application, you're going to hit this do the create quote in the actions and hit go. You're going to get this sort of your RFQ has been amended. And if you want to view the amendment history, you click on the view amendment history. If it hasn't been amended yet, you just hit create quote. But let's just say you're starting your application post the amendment being posted. So you're going to hit the view amendment history, and then that will take you to the next slide, where you will be able to see the amendment. So you'll know it's all of these slides are basically like you have to accept, acknowledge, view, like all you're doing is reaffirming over and over again that you in fact have read this. So you'll see here in this slide the amendment description. I put in like a sentence that basically says like, hey, this is just the webinar questions, or hey, we're gonna do, we're changing the due date. It will have like kind of the most important thing in there. So the first thing you're going to do is to review the amended changes. You're going to click on the document number. That's going to take you to the RFP. You can also get there by clicking this little infinity or eyeglasses sign, and that will allow you to view what the changes are. When you're done with that, you would then acknowledge the amendment, which is box number 3, or like right above the 2, there's another box number 3. So you would click that, and that will take you to the next slide. So you've acknowledged your amendment, and then you're going to accept the terms and conditions and acknowledge the changes. So you're going to click this little teeny tiny box, and then you're going to hit acknowledge. And then the acknowledge will, after you do that, you'll be taken to the next slide where you confirm your acknowledgement. So, the city is very, very excited and very, very interested in you understanding, or, all applicants understanding that they are being held responsible for everything that's in that amendment document. So you will, you're going to acknowledge successfully, and then you're going to say, yes, I want to proceed. And you'll click the yes box, which will take you to the next slide. It will take you to a confirmation of your acknowledgement, because we really like to beat a dead amendment horse here. At this point, you're going to hit the box yes, and that will take you to the next slide. And then finally, you're going to click on the checkbox down at the bottom here saying that you accept the terms and conditions. And then after that, you're going to hit the accept button, which is on the top or the bottom right-hand side. So you have to click that little box. I don't know why they make those boxes that you have to check so completely tiny, but they do. And so finally, then you will have acknowledged and accepted the amendment in every conceivable way, I suppose. So that, I believe, is so that, I think that maybe the next slide, we'll look at the next slide, is, how to submit an application. So you can see the city's procurement office is really interested in making sure that you read the amendment. They're pretty short, and they have interesting information, so maybe you will. How to submit an application. So after everything is said and done, you've done your awesome application, you are all ready to go, you're giving yourself 3 hours because you're a more nervous submitter like myself, and this is how you get going. So next slide. So when you're ready to submit, you're going to save your draft one last time, because if you're like me, you've compulsively saved the draft like 8 million times, and then you're going to click continue. And that will take you to the next slide. At the time, what you're going to do, when you hit that continue to start the process, the e-procurement system is going to do a scan of your entire application. It's not going to look at the attachments per se, but it's going to do a scan of the entire applications, and it's going to see if there's something that it doesn't quite jive with. And then it will give you an error message. It's not uncommon that you're going to get like 3 or 4 of these little X boxes all in that upper panel there, and it will say things like you must quote on at least one line of the RFQ. So now we're going to go, the next couple of slides are going to be like going through the 2 most common error messages. So you must quote on at least one line in the RFQ. Let's go to the next slide. That, usually the error message directs to like something left undone in the application, and here it will be like you must quote on at least one line in the RFQ. You can see right below it there's a little tab button, or a little tab that says lines, and it's going to say, it's indicating that you have to go into that screen, the line screen, and put in this case, placeholder numbers. We don't usually use the lines to do our application, in making our applicant, our funding decisions. We use the budgets that you submit, but it's very helpful if you just put those placeholders in for the lines. That helps further down the road in contracting and setting up budgets, and it will, generate an error message. So let's go to the next screen. Okay, and this application or this error message is going to talk about a quote value, which is required for requirement first name. And in this case, a quote value means an answer. That answer text box that you can only put 4,000 characters into. And requirements refers to the application questions section, and first name refers to the name, of the actual question. So in this case, the request, the thing that we're asking for is the first name or your first name. The quote value would be putting in your first name. That's how you find it. So I don't find a quote value is required for the requirement first name to be like something that really means a lot to me. Most of the things in e-procurement, those errors I find to be a little unintuitive. But generally speaking, if you look around the page, you can figure out what the, look at the keywords and look for the keywords on the screen, and you'll be able to figure out what the error is about. If you really are stuck, call me or call the e-procurement hotline. So let's go to the next screen. And then, so once your application is free from errors, you are ready to submit. At this point, clicking submit or continue rather should put your application into the review and submit phase. And you'll know that it's review and submit because it says so on the top, that header there. At this point, you should be able to review your entire application. And so we have a couple of screens coming up that show that. So let's go to the next screen. Here you can see there's all your attachments. So this is your last chance to look and look at all your responses, make sure that everything's well. Let's go to the next screen because it's like one huge scroll fest. So it will tell these lines. It has where all your attachments are. It's everything that you can check. And at the very bottom of that screen, you'll be asked to provide your electronic signature. So here's my pro tip. Put in your name and title before you check the box. I find that I would check the box first because it comes first, but you'll get an error message if you do it, and that's just stressful. So putting your name, putting your title, check the box, and then you'll be able to, at this point, you can also see here on the lower right-hand side, there's a printable view. So if you want to have a hard copy of what you're submitting, hit that printable view and you'll get a PDF of it. So you do this, you hit save draft, you can do your printable thing, you download your printable view, and let's go to the next slide. And then you can hit submit, which I wasn't on the other screen, it was hiding. So hit submit, and then you'll get, on the next slide, a submittal confirmation screen. So right now, eProcurement will send you a confirmation email within 24 hours of your submission. So they'll send the confirmation email to the email address associated with this particular application. You'll get that within 24 hours. You should see that confirmation screen. That's your real proof. That's the proof that you're going to get that you have submitted. And if you want to call or email me, and I can see it the minute, if you submit, I see it the minute you submit it. If you really want to check, just give me a call and I will tell you if I see it. And then you'll know for sure that you have submitted. So that pretty much concludes what I have to say about the e-procurement system. This is the time of the webinar where we take questions for, on the program. If you have an e-procurement question, I'd be thrilled to answer it for you. Here we go. So I'll hand it right back to B and Seth and Tom for the next little bit here, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Beth. I'm sorry. Thank you, Julia.
No problem.
Tom, did you have any last things you'd like to say?
No, this is a great presentation. I think you guys provided wonderful information. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the next screen so people have a chance to see your contact information. But now I do see a question that came in. Do you guys see that on your end?
Mm-hmm. It's what is the expected implementation timeline? Well, the RFP is due on March 11th. From there, we go to reviewing and evaluating. In terms of when does the contract start, let me pull that information up.
On or about April 1st.
Yeah, I think we're shooting for April 1st.
Okay, so then we're looking for a very quick turnaround on that, and then we'll, and try to get this out on April, have a decision made and stuff started by April 1st.
Thank you for that question. Are there any? And, feel free, if you think of something directly after this webinar, as Julia and Seth and Tom and I have said, don't hesitate. Reach out to us. Make sure that you get all your questions in by March 5th. All right, Tom, do you see anything else?
Nope, just up. What? Let's see, maybe one more came in.
Oh, what I mean is the expected timeline for the project.
Maybe the length of the RFP.
B, you're kind of cutting out. Did you read?
Yeah, I was trying to understand the question.
Maybe if the person could explain, or maybe if I've seen this question many times in these presentations, maybe they mean like how long does the contract go for?
Right.
Time, how long? 1 year, 2 years?
Right. Yeah, that can be found in the RFP. And
our contracts our contract periods are for a year, and then with 1 or 2 year, with usually 2 1-year extensions.
Yes.
Since this contract is starting kind of off, I believe that the first term is going to be more like a year and a half, and then it will revert to an annual thing, like 1-year contract.
Yes, it is under item F on page 12. Yeah, did you, Tom, did you hear me?
Yeah, that was a good answer.
Okay.
And the next question, Julia, do you see?
Are all services expected to begin on April 1st with all staff hired and ready to go?
Well, we definitely, as Seth mentioned in his portion, we are definitely looking for that organizational structure to be in place. We will be working with you once the respondent is awarded. We will be working with them to be able to fully implement as fast as they possibly can. But we know that there's some things that we also have to do on our end. So the support will be there. These are good questions. Tom, was there another?
No. No, there's no more questions. If you want to conclude, if you need to say anything about how to contact you, I know it's been up on the screen. I don't know if you need to read that off or not. And I think the last slide is just to thank everyone. So if there comes a question, I'll cut right back in, but otherwise we'll end it after you guys conclude.
So as Julia mentioned, You have my email address and my direct phone number. I would advise that you email me. Due to COVID, we've been spending at least one day in the office, so I don't want to miss a question. So definitely email me. You have my email address there. Julia, do you have a preference?
You know what? No matter whether you call the number, my phone number there goes to my cell phone. My email I can access, so no, it doesn't matter where I am. I will be able to answer your question.
All right. So we want to thank you for joining us this afternoon, and good luck to all of you, and good luck.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so
Yes.
much.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right, take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.